return man. Boom, this guy, Mel, can run.
He can, Joe, but I guess if I'm going to bash somebody, it's going to be St. Louis this year. I don't like Steve Walsh at quarterback. I don't like Lawrence Phillips at running back, and I don't like this pick over Marvin Harrison. You look at a great player like Harrison. He's also a great return man, and they go with Eddie Kennison, who's a decent player. But to me, somebody's going to get a great player in Marvin Harrison that's still on the board. It may be Indianapolis, but this is a decent football player. There's no question he can return. You look at his receptions, 98 in his career, and he came out early as a junior. My attitude, though, is when you're grading out a Marvin Harrison and Eddie Kennison, I think there's a big difference in ability.
Well, let's go to someone who knows a little bit how to grade wide receivers, and that's our Sterling Sharp. We heard Sterling talk about Marvin Harrison earlier. Sterling, haven't heard you talk about Kennison. Compare, contrast these two players. Do you like them both?
Chris, I really do, and I had Kennison rated as my number 3 guy up with Marvin Harrison and then Keyshawn Johnson. Eddie Kennison is a guy with a lot of ability with a lot more weight. And as we take a look at 191 pounds, he can do the underneath work for Isaac Bruce. I mean, he's a guy who wants the football in every type situation. And yeah, they say he may not be a very good practice player, but I'm going to tell you, when the lights go on Sunday, which is when you really need him and you really want him to light it up, Eddie Kennison is a very, very dangerous young man. And as a return man, he's got the weight that he can return both punts and kickoffs. He can take the NFL pounding. He can go inside, play like a big Herman Moore, Jerry Rice type guy. He's a guy I really like, though. I think the thing is you probably can't trust his ability because he hadn't had a lot of work at playing wide receiver like Joe mentioned because he was trying to run track during the spring. And I think this is a good pick. I still love Marvin Harrison. I can't believe he slid this far down. I think maybe Philadelphia will look at him as a return man and take him right now because they need a quality wide receiver. Back to you, Chris.
Well, I tell you what, I think neither the Colts nor the Dolphins can believe that Marvin Harrison has slipped this far either. He's not going to slip very much farther. A couple comments on Kennison as we go to break. One of the insiders, one of the bird dogs out there told me this week that of all the wide receivers, or at least the top ones, he's the best blocker. He's the best blocker of the group. There was some question as to how well he was liked by his LSU teammates, but the same bird dog told me, sometimes a horse needs the right jockey. Not to say anything wrong with the situation at LSU, but it's not as if we're worried about will he fit in. Sometimes it's just the wrong guy riding the wrong horse. And I think with the right jockey, Eddie Kennison could be a big-time player, and obviously that's what St. Louis is hoping. Indianapolis and Miami. We go to the AFC East. Thank you very much. And aside, as we go to Mel's board, personally, I think Rich Brooks is a perfect type coach for Lawrence Phillips and an Eddie Kennison. Not that they're problem people necessarily. I just think that the match is right. And those young men don't know Rich Brooks right now. Maybe they get to know him a little bit here in the offseason. Kennison and Phillips will like Rich Brooks' style. He understands college players. He understands the attitude. He's been there a long time. He can be a fatherly figure, very warm. I think it's a good mix for these two young men. Now let's go to your board now, and your hole is Marvin Harrison. What's happening here?
There's no question, Chris. I think when you look back, Andre Rison had dropped in that 22 area when he came out of Michigan State, and he had, of course, a great career so far. I think when you look at Marvin Harrison and you see him there as the 8th best player, and we're at pick 19, he's the value choice now. He also has the return skills. Indianapolis needs a speed receiver. I think he'd be ideal for that offense. And, of course, the rest of the players have gone off the board. When we drop it on down a little bit, you'll see there are still some talent available for these teams picking in the late first round. But Marvin Harrison is the key ingredient, the key football player that has dropped.
Indianapolis Colts, let's look at their receiving chart, Joe. And, of course, they got a great year out of their young tight end last year, Gilger, but they have some spots where they could fill.
Well, they also got a great year out of Marshall Faulk. He's their #1 receiver. Dawkins has not really blossomed to be the receiver they'd hoped he wanted, and Dilger, the tight end, did, as you mentioned, did an excellent job. 56 out of Marshall. Sean Dawkins, only 52 catches, and Dilger 42. I think they need another complimentary wide receiver, and I think they'll go with Sean Dawkins, see what he can do this year, and if he can't, they may find somebody else to feature it. Coaches aren't willing to wait a long time anymore. They don't have to wait. Players don't hang around. They go take big money. Coaches want production right now. I think they have a chance to get a heck of a football player right here at the wide receiver position. If it isn't Harrison, it could be more.
With the 19th choice in the first round, the Indianapolis Colts select Marvin Harrison, wide receiver from Syracuse.
Fast.
Miami Dolphins are now on the clock.
Fast, fast, and fast. And if he sat there for Miami, I got to think Jimmy was at least looking at him. So Miami is kind of doing some gyrations. But let's go Sterling Sharp. this is your man, Marvin Harrison. He's going to Lindy Infante, who was your coach when you broke in. Add the two up for us.
Well, not only that, Chris, they got Buddy Geist, who was my receivers coach there as well. And the one thing Lindy will do is put this young man in a position to where he'll do exactly what he did with the Syracuse Orangemen, and that's make big plays. I mean, in this offense, you're going to get a chance to see what this guy can do. Most of the passes you'll get a chance to see is like this, a 7 route. In Lindy's offense, it'll be a bench route. He enjoys catching the ball in his hands all over the football field, not only in traffic. He's got great change of speed, and I think he's the best body control guy, technique guy, and transition route runner in the draft. And I mean, I've been harping on Marvin Harrison all day, and like Andre Rison a few years ago, this is the steal of the first round so far, because not only do you get a guy with speed, you get a guy with aggressiveness to the football, you get a guy with great vision before the catch. He sees where he can play with his back to the defense. I think this is a great pick for Lindy, and I think this guy's going to jump up and show you that he's a great receiver. He's going to be a great receiver. Chris, back to you.
Well, Sterling, another bird dog, told me that he's kind of like a Lexus in this draft. You don't think the car is going that fast when you watch him, but he just flies down the field. He runs the patterns, as you say, and he's certainly going to a passing offense with Lindy Infante. So the Miami Dolphins are on the clock as a Super Bowl coach replaces a legend in Miami. The War Room, as the Dolphins ponder their first pick in the Jimmy Johnson era. Except that's Dallas's board. Okay, well, Darrell Johnston, Mark Stepnoski, Emmitt Smith, Alvin Harper, Eric Williams, Kevin Williams. Most of those names have been to Pro Bowls. On defense, drafted in the same era, Tolbert and Larry Brown, the MVP of last year's Super Bowl, and Dixon Edwards, Leon Lett, just a real nice player. Russell Maryland, Robert Jones, Kevin Smith, Darren Woodson, Brock Marion, Darren Smith, Kevin Smith, Darren Woodson, all those guys. And the common trait with most of them, speed, able to get to the football, able to play a scheme that's not by NFL standards on either side of the ball that difficult, but when you get there faster than anyone else, and you're younger, and you're hungrier, and you combine it all together, that's why the Dallas Cowboys had the nucleus to win 3 of the last 4 Super Bowls. We asked around the league the difference between Jimmy Johnson coaching in Miami versus that in Dallas. We sampled some opinion.
I think in Dallas, I think he had exactly his type of team.
Bowler number 30, Jerry reclining, looking at Jimmy, and Jimmy's, I don't know, they got some decisions to make here right now with about 6:40 left on the clock with Miami. Now, of course, when taking over the Miami Dolphins, Joe, and you heard Carl Peterson refer to it, 3 big salaried defensive players left. And the one I think he didn't want to lose was Troy Vincent to Philadelphia. The other 2, he kind of he liked the guys, but he realized that under the cap they had to go.
I think Marco Coleman, I think Brian Cox, I think he could live without him, but Troy Vincent was a guy, he's a very unique covered corner. 5 interceptions last year. He has the physical skills to play. He's going to be a big plus in Philadelphia. He has got a physical nature about what he can do, and it'll help tremendously for him. I think Jimmy, first of all, I like Jimmy's new hairdo. It's got a little bit of a wave in it, and it's a new look for him for a new football team. I think that he is going to try and go after speed. This has been his history. We've talked about it. That's the nature. First guy to come to my mind would be Ray Lewis. The second alternative would be Lewis will be there. I can trade down. Jimmy loves to get draft picks. I don't think he's quite got a handle exactly yet on this thing called the salary cap. I think you have to go through it. You have to experience it. Bob Eccles, who's a veteran, is in the organization as well. Understands
Miami, so he would be playing at home. Is that a good fit, or are there another player or two at this point with some speed that Jimmy might be looking at right now farther down your board?
I really don't. I think Jimmy's in a real dilemma here. When you look at Ray Lewis, I think he's got plenty of speed. I know there's been speculation that he doesn't. He ran 4.64 on grass during an individual workout. He's 235 pounds. He's a great football player. He averaged maybe 17 to 20 tackles per game at Miami. I just don't see Darrell Gardner being a good fit with Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson wants guys who go out there and produce and are impact players and make big plays. And Darrell Gardner did not do that on a consistent basis at Baylor. I just don't see that being a great fit.
Well, the other thing I think that we have to consider is look where Ray Lewis comes from. Butch Davis is now the coach at the University of Miami. Butch Davis was Jimmy's defensive coach. This is a natural fit as far as getting a player who understands a system so you don't have to spend a lot of time teaching a young man how to play the game. He comes from a coach who was in the professional level. I'm sure he sat down with him, explained to him what Jimmy's all about from a personality standpoint. And if the pick is made, then it is a good natural fit.
Well, there's about 4 minutes left to go on the clock as the Miami Dolphins look like they will burn up all 15 minutes. First-round picks are 15 minutes. Second-round picks are 10. Round 3 through 7 are 5 minutes if you're